All right, check this out. There was a synth pop band named I Am the World Trade Center that was active from 1999 to 2006. And it consisted of two members, Daniel Geller and Amy Dykes. Geller co-founded Kindercore Records with Ryan Lewis in 1996 in Athens, Georgia. So all of these albums were released on Kindercore. I Am the World Trade Center's first album was titled Out of the Loop. When you go down to the track listing for the album, you see that they have a song titled September that is track 11. I Am the World Trade Center, September 11th. It was released on July 17th, 2001, well before September 11th, 2001. And it's interesting because when someone says, I'm out of the loop, it means they don't know what's going on. You're outside the circle of news, or you don't have the newest information. Accordingly, people say, keep me in the loop. I Am the World Trade Center, September 11th, out of the loop, as in you're out of the loop on what's going on here. It's interesting, too, when you go to the archives of IamTheWorldTradeCenter.com, that website doesn't seem to have any footprint, but the last iteration of it, which was a Kindercore blog, does have some archives. And you can see here that Kindercore signed a band with the name Grape Soda. And these are the two guys who made up the band Grape Soda, with a very interesting photo here. Let's just call this interesting. I'm not really going to go into any more detail, just interesting. Add it to the list of all the things surrounding 9/11 that are interesting along these lines. But the thing I really wanted to discuss in this video is the reading lesson that was going on in a classroom that George W. Bush was a part of on the morning of September 11, 2001. Now, this is very difficult to cover because all of the videos have been edited. Even on mainstream news channels like this one, they have edited the scenes out of order, so it's very difficult to tell what came first and where it's placed in the context of what actually transpired in that classroom on that morning. I did my best to piece it together, and there's just a couple parts that I want to show. First is going to be this opening scene where George W. Bush is introducing himself. Listen very closely to what the teacher says here.
And this morning we do have a lesson that we will read with you, read for you. Good. And it's lesson 60 of our SRA reading program.
It's from the SRA reading program. And when you go back to 2001 Florida, the SRA reading program, often used in Florida schools during that period, likely refers to the SRA reading laboratory kits, or the SRA corrective reading program, which focused on individualized, color-coded, and leveled reading instruction to improve comprehension and fluency for various grade levels, including during the No Child Left Behind era. And actually, George Bush was in this classroom to promote that bill that he wanted to pass, No Child Left Behind. It was an education bill. And that has broader meaning in the context of what went on in this classroom as it related to us, the audience, and the 9/11 ritual itself, as in no one left behind. No child will be left behind in terms of this programming as it relates to the larger ritual that's taking place. But anyway, just note that she references the SRA and then says this.
Direct instruction.
I know very well where that came from.
Okay. Are you ready, my butterflies? Yes. LLP.
Are you ready, my butterflies? In other words, this whole scene starts off with an SRA reference in conjunction with a butterfly resonance. And obviously, SRA in different contexts can also mean satanic ritual abuse. And the butterfly is very relevant in that context as it relates to monarch programming and what they do to transform someone's mind, to bring those alters forward that I've been referring to in prior videos recently. SRA butterflies in the context of SRA ritual abuse and creating something new in someone's mind, breaking it down in a way where there's a disassociation and a new personality is created, which is exactly what this 9/11 ritual did to us. It was a trauma-based mind control ritual that disassociated us and began the process of creating a new altar that would flip forward whenever it was triggered in the context of the 9/11 ritual going forward. Now, as I'm sure most of you know, the story that they read is referred to as the pet goat or my pet goat. And it's from this reading mastery lesson book that is known as the Rainbow Edition, Level 2, Storybook 1. Okay, so in the context of 9/11 and 2001: A Space Odyssey, the monolith at Ground Zero, and then Bowman and Oz somewhere over the rainbow as it relates to this type of programming, they're reading Pet Goat, the Rainbow Edition of the book that story comes from. And it's level 2, as in they're going to level 2 buildings on this day, all right? Storybook 1, the 2 buildings will become 1 as a result of this ritual. But obviously the next part is the part that everyone should be familiar with at this point, and I'll just play it to be comprehensive. But I do realize that this will be old information for a lot of you.
Yes, kite. Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get ready. Kite. Yes. Sound it out. Get ready. Kite. Sound it out. Get ready. Kite. What word? Kite. Yes.
So the word there is kit, but subconsciously you hear it as hit. And the same thing is taking place for the rest of the words that they read in this scene.
Kit. Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready.
Steal.
What word?
Steal.
Yes, steal.
No confusion for that one. Hit, steal.
Read these words the fast way. Get ready.
Play.
Yes, play. Get ready.
And then plain and must. So you have hit, steal, plain, must. Plain, must, hit, steal. And it's interesting to me as well that she's reading these words directly under a picture of a zebra, which ties into the whole Rosemary's Baby Sharon Tate thing. Remember, she is murdered on a zebra rug. And that connected to the Beatles and the crosswalk image on their album that was being taken at the exact same time, essentially, that murder was taking place. Rosemary's Baby essentially being the same thing as the birth of the Star Child in 2001: A Space Odyssey. The birth of this Antichrist altar that is a new personality, essentially, in mind control programming terms, coming to life inside your mind through this ritual.
Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake. Get ready.
Kite.
Yes, kite. Get ready.
Kit.
Yes, kit. Get ready.
Steal.
Yes, steal. Get ready.
Play.
Yes, playing. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Boys and girls, pick your reader up from under your seat.
And obviously, the kite puts the image of something flying in your mind as well in the context of hit, plain, steal, must. And this is the part that I was referring to that was very difficult to track because so many of the videos had a different scene before the kids bend over to grab their book that they're going to read the My Pet Goat story from. But as far as I can tell, that is the scene, the one I just played, that transpires right before they do this. And that's very important based on what I'm going to show you next. But I'm going to play it a couple times just to drive home the idea, so I'll let this play for a second.
Open your book up to lesson 60 on page 153.
This moment right here is when they say George W. Bush was made aware that the second plane had hit the tower in New York City, all right? So right as they're going over this thing about the plane, the steel, the hit, must, and the kite, right as they're doing that, saying those words with George Walker Bush in the room, Philip Petit in the walk, the wire between the towers, George Walker Bush, right as that is going on, the plane presumably is flying into the tower, and that scene is being shown on television screens live, for all intents and purposes, all across the world, because the coverage had been going on since the first plane hit. So everybody sees that image, myself included. I saw it live in real time. I mean, they're probably on some kind of delay usually, but essentially it's live. So we're watching that happen as this is going on. And then after they're done reciting those words, this guy who was in the administration, his last name was Card, first name Andrew. So it's like they drew a card in terms of the Trump card, right? That this ritual ultimately is when you tie in Donald Trump as the personification of it. It's the Trump card. He comes in and whispers into George Bush's ear, a second plane hit the second tower. America is under attack. I'm not sure why the quality of this video is so poor, because other ones are much better, but maybe this one's poor because it's one of the older ones that is more undisturbed than the edited versions. Even when you go to Sarasota schools and their version of the video, it has a better quality, but it's not in the same order. They edited the scene, so it's not the same. Like this scene where they bend down to pick up their books is preceded by a different reading of words. It's like they're now, in hindsight, trying to intentionally confuse people about what went down here because it was so obvious.
At the count of 3, try it again. Get ready from the beginning of that sentence. Get ready.
She played with her goat in her house.
Go on.
She played with her goat in her yard.
So they already kind of fast forwarded after that scene where he's given the whisper in his ear, hey, we're under attack, the second plane hit the second tower. They jump forward in this Fox 13 Tampa Bay video. But what really happened is they whisper in his ear that is transpiring as the plane has just hit the tower.
Get ready.
Go.
And then there's the title, and it's just interesting the way that she is pounding her pencil or pen or whatever she has onto the paper, kind of in the same way that these triggers would be created in someone's mind. You make them repeat something over and over again through this abuse, and you drive these words into their mind, and it's later triggered. And it brings forward all the things you've programmed them with. So this is a metaphorical ritual abuse scene, and that's what was taking place in our minds throughout this event and everything that's been associated with it since then. And naturally, this is where that I Pet Goat 2 video comes from, that title, because it's all about the continuation of the ritual going back to this scene as it related to 9/11. But the sequence of events here is kind of wild because
Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Because you're going to pick your reader up from under your seat. Open your
as the kids go to grab their books under their seats, which I'm sure they were told to do for a very specific reason that I'm about to get to, that's when the actual plane was striking the tower. And we know that because they do this, they come back up, and then immediately he comes in the scene to tell George Bush that that just happened. That's wild because the kids are essentially recreating the brace position that you're told to get in on a plane when there's an emergency situation, right? So those kids are essentially doing the brace right as that plane is hitting the tower in real time. And this is right before the president is informed that it happened. And then, before they do this, they're repeating the phrases, plane must hit steel, kite. The word isn't plane, it's playing, right? But again, my point, subconsciously, you're hearing it as plane in the context of what's going on as this is transpiring when you watch it after the fact. But it's not about you watching it after the fact. It's about the ritual that's taking place as the event is transpiring. It's all a part of the larger black magic, for lack of a better term, that's transpiring here. But they are in the brace position after subconsciously being primed with the plane must hit the steel, right? That's flying like a kite into the towers. They brace to pick up My Pet Goat, or the Pet Goat story from the Rainbow edition of this guide. They sit back up, and then George W. Bush is informed that the second plane has hit the second tower. I'll play that one more time.
Remember what you say when there's an E at the end of the word. Get ready.
Can.
Yes, can. Get ready.
Can.
Yes, can. Get ready.
May.
Yes, may. Give yourself some pat with that.
Yeah.
Oh, see, that was my point. I was playing the wrong video where they have it out of order. So they have a different scene where they're reading different words, and then they go into that scene I was talking about. So let me go back to the video that's in what I believe is the correct order, which is this one.
Plane.
Yes, plane. Get ready.
Must.
Yes, must. Because you're going to pick your reader up from under your seat. Open your
The
book
brace
to
position
left
after they say that, and then he comes in the trump card and tells him that the second tower has been hit. Are you ready, my butterflies? Right? I mean, that is a phrase directed at us. We are out of the loop. I am the World Trade Center. You essentially are the World Trade Center in the context of the larger ritual that we're now seeing play out. Where symbolically, yes, you are the World Trade Center in the context of the larger ritual. As it relates to Donald Trump personifying this event and playing out a different ritual through his 2 presidential terms, at least on the surface, but it's all the same thing. And through that process, you are the World Trade Center that he is manipulating, destroying, for lack of a better term. It's a controlled demolition. Your mind fuses with AI, and you're out of the loop. But like that butterfly, in the context of SRA, you are transforming from your larva stage into something new. It's a transformation. And obviously that is where the goat imagery ties in, because that goes back to all of these occult traditions, which is the source of this stuff. That's all stemming from the same thing, that is Antichrist. Artificial intelligence, the alien invasion into your mind.